and welcome to the first ever USC Gould Public Interest Live event. We are streaming today on USC Gould Admissions Facebook and Instagram, as well as the USC Gould Law Facebook. I will have all the panelists introduce themselves. Part of this event is celebrating the 120-year anniversary of the Gould School of Law, and by chance it is also the 90th anniversary of the LAFLA clinic, and we have Fernando Gayton here today to talk about that. He's the Deputy Director. So I'll let everybody introduce themselves. My name is Mirelle Raza. I'm a second-year student here at USC Gould and the president of the Public Interest Law Foundation, which is a student-run organization that provides clinic opportunities and summer stipends to students here at Gould.
I'm Clare Pastore. I am professor of the practice of law. I'm the advisor to the Public Interest Law Foundation. I direct the Public Interest Certificate Program, and I teach a lot of classes related to the long practice that I had in the Los Angeles nonprofit community. So poverty law, ethical issues for nonprofit and government lawyers, civil rights, and a variety of courses like that.
Hi, I'm Kronick Rothbart. I'm the Director of Career Services. I'm in the Career Services office, and I work with a lot of our public interest students and alumni. Prior to my coming to the law school, I was a public interest attorney myself in Miami, Florida, with the Legal Aid Society, and also here in Los Angeles at the Harriet Buhai Center for Family Law. Glad to be here.
Hi, I'm Fernando Gayton. I'm the Deputy Director of the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles. Also graduated from USC Law School in 2002, and I've been with Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles for about 11 years now.
So to start off, we'll have Professor Pastore talk a little bit about her role in the Public Interest Certificate.
So this is a really exciting time for public interest initiatives at USC Gould. We have so many things we can't even talk about them all today, so I'm just going to mention a couple of them. We created just 3 years ago the Public Interest Certificate Program, through which students who are receiving a JD degree can also get a certificate, a transcript notation, that they have received a certificate of public interest law. And this certificate serves a couple of functions. It helps students planning a career in nonprofit, government, or criminal law organize a course load and know what kinds of courses are important and essential to take. It's an important signal to employers that we are continuing to prepare students for these important fields, and it helps create a community of students who are interested in these areas of law. So the certificate program is very exciting. It's well underway now. We have admissions initiatives, including the Public Interest Scholars Program. Perhaps Rachel will mention that briefly. We have a variety of clinics and practicum opportunities through which students can get hands-on practical training in coursework and skills that are important for a nonprofit law career. So, for example, we have a post-conviction justice program clinic. We have an immigration clinic. We have an international human rights clinic. Those are all full-year clinics. And then we have a series of one-semester practica. I teach one called the Access to Justice Practicum, where students work with me and nonprofit community organizations. We've worked with Legal Aid, we've worked with the ACLU, we've worked with the Alliance for Children's Rights, we've worked with the Wage Justice Center, we've worked with many, many organizations around Los Angeles and around the country on issues for low-income people and people in need of civil rights assistance. So we have a variety of opportunities here, academic, hands-on, community building, and otherwise to help strengthen and build our public interest law community.
So I, at the Career Services Office, and our team is very interested in developing you as a student and future graduate at the law school and going into the world of public interest. And what we see this is really a partnership of working with you, starting first as when you're a 1L, continuing till you graduate and even after. What I like to say is that it's a lifetime of work and services to our community. Many of you are coming into law school because you want to do good. You want to do public interest work, you want to either work in legal services, or maybe you want to work in the government, and that's where our office comes to partner with you to meet employers, to develop your skill sets, to talk about classes you should take, to talk about pro bono work you should be doing. And so our program takes a very activist role. Our office takes a very active role in helping you become the attorney you want to become. And we have done that through a variety of programs. As Professor Pastore mentioned, we have our Public Interest Scholars Program, which is a very special program, which Mirelle is also a member of it, in which your first summer you are guaranteed funding to work in a legal services organization or in the government, in a government office, whether it's here in Los Angeles or nationally or even internationally. And one of the things that I would say is, as I mentioned, we're a very activist office, so we're always available to our students and to our alumni, who are such an important part of our community as well, to ensure that you find the opportunities that you are looking for. We do that through a variety of programs. We have our on-campus interviewing programs. We participate in off-campus programs. We fund students to attend the Equal Justice Works Conference and Career Fair. We host here the Public Interest Career Fair so that students can meet employers here on campus and learn about their organizations. We also do a lot of programming during the school year and during the summer as well. The other services, we really try to pride ourselves on individually working with students to accomplish their goals. Another great thing that I think we offer as a service is counseling in terms of fellowship preparation, because we know that for students, in order to pursue fellowships, they'll have to prepare an application. So we help do applications with students, and we also do mock interviews with students so they can be prepared for interviews, whether it's for a fellowship or any type of opportunity.
Very good.
Yeah, and so like I mentioned, I've been with Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, or LAFLA as it's known locally, for about 11 years, and as Deputy Director for most of this year, 2019. So I'm new to the leadership, the upper management at LAFLA, but I started my career in public interest because of USC Law School. And one of the special things about this law school is that it was here that many of the best programs in our area for public interest got started. My own organization, LAFLA, got started here in 1929. For those of you who don't know LAFLA, we're one of the largest and oldest public interest law firms in Los Angeles. We're the first legal aid society formed here, and we're formed right here at USC in 1929. Who here knows about John Seeger Bradway? Well, I'll tell you about him. He was touring the country around that time, 1929, trying to promote these practicums, if you will, these clinical programs at various places throughout the country. And he landed here in Los Angeles because the then dean, Justin Miller, recruited him to start a program here at USC. It was then that Legal Aid Foundation Los Angeles got started. In September of 1929, think about that, September of 1929, the clinic had started. The very following month, the stock market crashes, and the country is driven into this Great Depression that we now know really changed our country fundamentally. Fast forward to 2019, we're now a program with 5 different offices throughout LA. Our roots are that clinical program where law students and professors and lawyers, we're seeing clients face to face on some of the more basic problems that they may have, legal problems they may have, with the fundamental idea that in order to promote equal access to justice, you had to have a lawyer, counsel person, and no matter what their pocketbook size might be, allow people to have access to the courts, access to justice. And 2019, that same philosophy drives what we do every day. We have 5 community offices, as I mentioned, one in downtown, one in Long Beach, one in Santa Monica and East LA, and most importantly, South Central, very close to the USC campus, where we serve over 100,000 people every year. Last year alone, we served 100,000 people through clinics, through online intake, through video conferencing, and certainly one-on-one representation in our community offices. So that spirit of a community office, the community-based clinic, never went away. It's still ingrained in LAFLA's DNA, and it started right here at USC. USC was also the birthplace of Western Center on Law and Poverty, one of our partner programs, also a legal services program in the area, as well as AMPHOS, the mental health advocacy program that we often partner with. So USC has this rich history of promoting and supporting public interest in the area. Now, you may think that part of what we do is just that one-on-one transaction with individuals trying to do a Band-Aid approach to legal problems, and that's not necessarily the case. One of the strengths that we have is that we are certainly direct services. We're there, we're on the ground, we're embedded in the communities that need us the most, but we also are able to monitor trends that are happening to our clients. And that's perhaps the most powerful part of our work. We're able to see the issues that keep coming up over and over again and try to get at the root cause of those problems with our clients through community lawyering, partnering with community organizations, partnering with community groups to really come up with solutions for some of the bigger problems that our client communities face. And so as part of that, we also have a policy, we also work on policy work when allowed. We also do impact litigation, as well as community economic development. And over time, while we have these roots in community lawyering and this clinic-based model, we've grown our programs to really look at, with our clients, trying to find solutions long-term. So right now is a great time to explore a career in public interest. It's never been a better moment. When I graduated from law school, it was a very different scenario in 2002. Today, we're seeing the political winds shift, where more government agencies, more foundations, and more resources are being poured into legal services, and it's for the best, for our clients and for all you who might be exploring a career in public interest.
So, as I mentioned, I'm a second-year student here at USC. I had a short career in government after my undergraduate degree, and then really decided to come to law school because I was hoping to do public interest law. I wasn't sure about USC at first, but when I came for Law Day, and this is something I suggest for every student, take advantage of the admitted students days, the law days, come do a tour, meet our admission ambassadors. I'm one of them. I can give you a tour, because it really shaped how I saw USC once I saw the way students interacted with each other, the way professors were there to help, and when I came for Law Day, I knew within an hour of being here that I was going to come to USC and that I would be supported in my public interest goals. And I haven't looked back since. It has been such a wonderful experience. You heard from our panelists about some of the opportunities that we offer here. I am in the Public Interest Scholars Program. If you're interested in that, you should definitely apply. It's one additional essay on the application, and it's just another chance to kind of show the school and the admissions team who you are, so you should take advantage of that for sure. It's great to have, within the larger public interest community, this smaller network. We get mentors. I have a mentor who works at the Riverside DA's office. We've met for lunch a couple times. I am working at a DA's office next summer, so she's helped me with some advice for that and has told me I can call her anytime. It's just a great community, and the Trojan family is incredible. I want to talk a little bit more about my experience here at Gould, but I do want to ask Fernando and maybe Rachel to talk a little bit about how wonderful the Trojan family is, because you hear about it a lot and it's hard to understand until you're actually in this environment.
Well, I can start. I'm lucky enough to have a Gould alum on our board at LAFLA, and certainly many Gould alum as part of staff at LAFLA, my colleagues. Amber Finch, who was recently featured in the USC Law USC Law magazine, gave a really good profile about the connection to LAFLA and USC. And I should say also that part of what is really special about USC Law School is that the initiative to engage in public interest is really student-driven in many ways. And that to me really made a difference to me in my career. It was students that really drive PILF, drive those connections to the agencies out there that are looking for students to help. It's the students that reach out to find clinics. And at LAFLA, one thing that I found really special, for example, was that we had a long-term commitment to this clinic that we run in the heart of Skid Row at the LA Can Center. And that clinic traditionally had been something that we went to UCLA students because of their PILF program to help staff. It was USC students that reached out to us specifically and said, we want to be part of that clinic. It's close to our campus, it's where we want to be, and it's where we see the biggest need. And that to me really really resonated. It was the students who made a commitment to be there every Wednesday, and to this day have really helped staff the clinic and serve our clients. So Trojan Roots run deep, and I see that throughout my career.
And I think Trojan Roots run wide as well. I know that whenever I call an alum, especially an alum in the public interest community, and I say, can I introduce you to a student, or I'm gonna be in Washington, can I have coffee with you? The answer is always yes. And how can we help? And that, to me, working in the law school is such a great resource to be able to reach out to someone in the community. We have a strong base here in Los Angeles, we have a strong base here in California, but to be able to attend a reception in Washington, D.C. of public service-centered alums is fabulous, because then we can connect with them, and then we can connect alums to alums or students to alums. So, and I think that's something that we pride ourselves on, is the Trojan family. It's a lifetime commitment, and it really, I would say, whenever asked, a Trojan comes through.
Can I add one thing to that? I'm not a grad of this law school myself, but I've been in the LA nonprofit community for many, many years. And so, like Fernando, I've certainly run across lots of Gould grads throughout my whole career, and that's been wonderful. But since I've been teaching, the last 10 years teaching full-time at USC Law, I have an increasing number of ex-students who are now practitioners in the community. And that's fantastic for me. I have many ex-students who are colleagues now, and we have co-counseled cases together. A couple of our ex-students, as Fernando mentioned, many USC alums have been involved in the founding of important organizations in LA. The most recent one is the Wage Justice Center, which was founded 12 years ago here in Los Angeles by 2 Gould grads. So for me, both as a professor and as a nonprofit advocate, it's fantastic to have this long-term, continuous yet changing connection with public interest-minded students. So it's great to teach them, it's great to work with them side by side in the practicum, and it's great to work with them as colleagues when they go out into the community.
And the alumni want to know what the students are doing, and they want to know what's going on at the school. So that, I think it's a reciprocal, or kind of a relationship that crosses paths several times.
And I can vouch for that. Last summer, I had the privilege of working in Washington, D.C. for a government organization. And I met with a number of alums when I was out there, and they were falling over themselves to help me, even if they didn't work in the sector I was interested in. They just wanted to know about what my career path looked like and how they could be a small part of it. So I have a roommate that wants to work in New York next summer, so the Career Services Office helped her with that. I have friends in San Francisco, Texas. So as Rachel mentioned, our roots really do run wide and deep.
We'll be calling you, Mirelle.
I also wanted to talk a little bit more. Fernando talked about how the public interest community here is really harbored in PILF. That's the Public Interest Law Foundation. We are so proud of PILF. We're a 12 students are on our executive board, and then we also have 10 1L reps. So we're a pretty big board, and thank goodness, because we have a lot of events and responsibilities. Some of the things that PILF does, we put on panels. The panels this year have included attorneys behind the Me Too movement, which focused on employment law and discrimination. We had a panel about the border crisis and asylum and refugee promises that have changed. And we are going to have a panel next semester about, it's, I think, called Doing Good While Doing Well. The idea is that you can work in a big law firm but still participate in pro bono work and give back to the public interest community, and that you don't have to pick just one. A lot of public interest students feel like they need to do a big law job or a job that is outside of the public interest sector right out of law school, and doing good while doing well really shows you that you can do that and still return to public interest a few years down the line, or still contribute while you're at another position. So PILF runs a number of clinics through the law school, but also through partnerships. One of those is LAFLA, as Fernando mentioned. We also have one with Skid Row. There's a housing clinic, domestic violence, immigration, asylum. We work with the International Refugee Assistance Program here at the school. Really anything you're interested in, we can provide you the opportunity. And if we don't have the clinic, students are actually able to go out and find their own opportunities, and it can still count towards a PILF clinic hour. Our students participate in these for a number of reasons, but one of them is just that it's a great chance to get outside of the law school bubble. When you're in school, it can be really all-encompassing, especially your first year. It's just very academic. You don't really get to practice your legal skills. And the PILF clinics are a chance for you to go out, engage in the community that you're living and learning in, and make connections to people like Fernando, other students across different sections, across different schools. Our Skid Row clinic, I think we work with the UCLA students. And the interest in these clinics and the PILF programming is just rising. This year we had a record-breaking turnout of 140 first-year students at our introductory meeting. That's 2/3 of the 1L class, which is incredible. And not all those students will do public interest work this summer, but the fact that we had the initial interest and that they're all participating in clinics throughout the year allows students to have those experiences and also see how they can participate post-graduation, as I mentioned, even if they're not working in a public interest job. This extreme interest in PILF is very supported by the school, and that can be shown in a number of ways. One is the EJW conference, which is the Equal Justice Works Conference. That's in Washington, D.C. So while we have on-campus interviews here for Big Law, the Equal Justice Conference is a similar opportunity for public interest students. It's in Washington, D.C. It's the largest career fair, and the school supports students in going. I was lucky enough to get a stipend from the school to go myself, along with 2 other students, and one of my classmates actually got her job through interviewing at that career fair. And I actually applied for a fellowship through it as well. So the school is very supportive outside of just big law positions, and I really want to stress that today. The other big showing of support this year has been that the dean announced a commitment starting in the summer of 2020 to fund public interest jobs for students who are 1 or 2Ls and working in public interest job that is qualifying, and these students also have to fulfill the requirements in order to receive a PILF grant. So these are living grants. For the past 30 years, PILF as a student organization has given these grants out and done a lot of fundraising. The school taking on this commitment is a great step, and we're so excited to be working with the school and so grateful to Dean Boozman for this commitment. We really believe it's going to change the legal landscape in Los Angeles because it's going to give so many students the opportunity to participate in this work without having to worry about taking out additional funds and loans in the summer. Rachel, did you want to talk any more about EJW?
Yeah. So, well, I'll talk about 2 facets of Equal Justice Works. One, as Mirelle mentioned, is the conference and career fair. And if you can imagine a large hotel ballroom of several rooms. Fernando, you went to your EJW conference when you were in law school, yeah. Several rooms of just tables and tables of employers. And what students do, 2Ls and 3Ls, can attend this conference and can bid on employers and can have interviews with employers. As Mirelle mentioned, one of her classmates obtained her job through that. In past years, we've sent many students to it, and other students have obtained their summer jobs and actually almost their postgraduate job through the Equal Justice Works Conference and Career Fair. What's also great about the conference is that they have programming during the course of the conference in addition to interviews where they're talking about fellowships, where they're talking about loan repayment, where they're talking about finding opportunities in public interest, and they usually have a keynote speaker. This year, I think, was former Attorney General Loretta Lynch. I have the pleasure of seeing Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg one year, and they've had amazing speakers attend this conference. And we're glad to send students to this program because we know to get from Los Angeles to Washington can be challenging, so we do provide a travel stipend for that. And I often tell students, and I think I want to make this point overall, is that though we have a strong base here in Los Angeles, we also want students to find opportunities in other locations. So a big reason why we send students to the Equal Justice Works Conference is because there are a lot of employers from the East Coast, from the Northeast, that attend this conference. So we want to make sure that our students are seen by employers on the East Coast. Another great thing about Equal Justice Works, of course, is that they are a major funder of fellowships, postgraduate fellowships. These are project-based fellowships where a student will design their project and their dream job, essentially, and host or be hosted at an organization for 2 years. And so we're glad that we partner with Equal Justice Works to allow, for those fellowships. I'm proud to say we do have a 3L who just received an Equal Justice Works Fellowship. That's really wonderful news. I know we've had students partner with LAFLA.
That's right.
And that's really great. I pointed, while we're talking about fellowships and talking about jobs, I thought I'd also mention the Skadden Fellowship, because I'm sitting in between two former Skadden Fellows, which is another very prestigious postgraduate public interest fellowship. Also project-based, where you design a project. These are, and in terms of my office and what we do for fellowships, as I mentioned before, is we want to help, we reach out to students who we think are fellowship candidates. We will help them with applications. We will help them connect to organizations. We will review applications. We will do mock interviews of the students, because we want to best prepare. We've also provided travel stipends for students to go out of state to attend those interviews. I mean, the school is very serious, and we're investing in our public interest community because we know how important it is.
For LAFLA and other legal services agencies, I can tell you these fellowships make a world of difference for us, because our North Star is to get at the root cause of what causes our clients a cycle of poverty. But for us, thinking outside the box makes a world of difference. And so for these fellows to be hosted at LAFLA, we take this process very seriously. It provides us an opportunity to host someone who's going to think outside the box and come up with solutions for our clients' problems. And they have the benefit, once hosted at LAFLA, of having experts in the fields of family law, immigration, consumer rights, employment rights, housing, and government benefits. And so all of these provide an ideal incubation, if you will, for a career in public interest.
I wanted to note too, I mentioned we have this thriving community here at Gould, and we're really lucky that Professor Pastore has been an advisor for PILF for a number of years. I'm wondering if you could just talk about how you've seen the public interest community grow.
Yeah, it's really wonderful. I mean, I was an advocate here in the Los Angeles community. I was at first a Skadden Fellow and then a staff attorney for many years at the Western Center on Law and Poverty, and for a few years at the ACLU of Southern California. So I've been in the community a long time. And I will say that many people, particularly when I arrived in the community a while ago, many people had the view that USC wasn't all that public interest oriented. And I think in part, we train very fine private sector lawyers here. We train very fine corporate lawyers here. But that's not all that we do by a long stretch. And I think our contributions, and some of which have been highlighted today, participating in the founding of the Legal Aid Foundation, of the Western Center on Law and Poverty, of Mental Health Advocacy Services, of the Wage Justice Center, sending tons of great lawyers into government jobs and public interest jobs, that hasn't always been in the spotlight here at USC. In recent years, thanks in part to some of these initiatives like the Public Interest Scholars Program, in which Mirelle participates, the Public Interest, I guess you're kind of in the trifecta, the PILF program, the Public Interest Scholars, and the Public Interest Certificate, Mirelle's doing all of those things. Those have all sort of, in some ways, they're new branding on things we've been doing all along, right? So this is a way to highlight, increase, and cement our commitment to students pursuing a variety of educational and professional paths. And I also want to add that it's not the case, as Rachel touched on this, it's not the case that there are public interest students, and then there are private sector students, and then there are government students, and those are all different people. People in your generation will have a variety of jobs. Nobody will be, go in on day one and come out 50 years later with that gold watch. That's not the way the world works anymore. And I've had many students and alums and colleagues who have gone back and forth between the private sector and the nonprofit sector and the government sector. Throughout my career, I have partnered with, certainly with advocates in the nonprofit world, but also with pro bono lawyers from the private sector. So everyone is needed and everyone can participate in helping improve our justice system. At USC in the last few years, partly through these initiatives, we're attracting more students who are starting to realize, hey, wait a minute, USC is a really wonderful choice for public interest-minded students. We have a lot of opportunities here. And because we're a small community, I was reflecting on what Rachel was saying about our work in helping students prepare for fellowship interviews and to prepare fellowship proposals. We all know all of those students personally. We know who's received those fellowships in recent years. We know what they've done after their fellowship. We help them, kick around ideas for the project, do mock interviews as they prepare for those interviews. It's really a very collaborative process, and because we are small, I don't think I've ever had the experience of, I learned that someone I don't know got a fellowship. I just don't think that happens here because we're all very closely tied together. One fellowship that wasn't mentioned was the Ermis Fellowship, which is made possible through the generosity of a local philanthropic family, the late Sydney and the still going strong Audrey Ermis here in Los Angeles. And so that's a postgraduate fellowship for one student a year, a one-year position that's only for USC students. We also have bridge fellowships, which are for students who don't have employment immediately when they graduate, and they can receive up to a year of funding from the law school to pursue work primarily in the nonprofit sector. So I would say in maybe the 10 or 12 years that I've been on the full-time permanent faculty at USC, as opposed to all the years before when I taught part-time and was in the community knowing USC, I think there's just been increasing excitement around public interest opportunities here. I think with the Scholars Program and the Certificate Program, we're recruiting more students who are interested in these alternative careers. The alumni who are in those careers are coming back to the law school because they're seeing that there's more interest here. So I think it's really a terrific time to be involved in public interest opportunities at USC. The one last thing I'll say about alumni is when the mentor program started, which is public interest scholars get early access into that program, and then everyone in the certificate has the opportunity to get a mentor later. We had more alumni want to be mentors than we initially had students apply. So we have enormous alumni interest in helping nurture and foster the careers and aspirations of students who want to work in these fields.
And just as a follow-up, this year's 2019 Ermis Fellow is Jose Del Rio, who's at the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, your East LA office.
So actually, we're going to move into questions. If people have questions, you can submit them. We're going to be taking them live and they're popping up, so please feel free to write in. And this is a great transition because there's a question, Fernando, for you. How does LAFLA continue to work with students, and what kind of opportunities do they have while they're at LAFLA?
Great question. So one of the opportunities that we have is, like I mentioned, some of those standing clinics like the LA CAN Clinic. The LA CAN Clinic is based out of the Los Angeles Community Action Network in the heart of Skid Row, and they are gracious enough to host us every Wednesday night from 6 to 8. It's an ideal clinic in the sense that it's a generalist, although the bulk of the work involves housing and government benefits. Anything that walks through the door, we try to get an answer to. And so you're working alongside pro bono attorneys from some of the larger firms like LAFLA and Watkins have been very generous to that clinic, and others who have stepped in during those hours, during that week, to help clients. And so we do staff it with some LAFLA leadership, some LAFLA staff that know the clinic, know the issues, who can help supervise and help provide support. But you are there one-on-one, helping the client triage, deal with issues, kind of troubleshoot and figure out what issues need resolution. So that's one of the clinics that's really been going very strong with a lot of USC students participating regularly. Other opportunities are provide internships for some, to a certain extent, internships throughout the year, during the school year, helping a particular office on a specific project. One that comes to mind is the Housing Communities Work Group, which is the one that I used to run out of our South LA office. We've had students there participate on impact litigation cases, whether it's reviewing documents or helping to prepare a witness for trial. For the most part, it involves research and writing, as you might expect. Our government benefits work is housed out of our economic stability work group, and I know currently students can play a big role there, volunteering out of our East LA office to help support various projects there that are geared towards government benefits work, as well as a consumer project related to student loan fraud. So the sky's the limit in terms of what you can do. If you can imagine a project or an area of law that LAFLA is involved in, you will find an opportunity to volunteer. The best place to go is to our website at lafla.org, and there's a portal there for volunteer opportunities, and if you submit your name and application, you will get a call back.
And I have to echo that because I know two of your staff members who are running your pro bono program or in charge of the volunteers. I know that, first of all, they're both integral in terms of training law students, and they have taken a big part in terms of the big summer trainings that are offered to all students in the public interest community here in Los Angeles, and have put together trainings and are even thinking of different ways to train students and volunteers. But I also know that if I call and say, I need some help, or I have some students looking for opportunities, there's always an email or a call back saying, how can we help? Let's figure this out.
And Rachel, can you actually also talk a bit, there's a question asking if you can talk a bit more about what public interest careers might look like, what some internships in the summer might look like, and then post-graduation.
Yeah, so it's interesting, that's a great question. And what I would say is that, it's this very interesting mix. I have some students that come to do public interest, and they will continue to do public interest throughout their time here at the law school, and then they'll go into public interest, or they'll go into a government career post-law school. I have students who have interest in being a public interest attorney, but then they decide they want to go the big law route, and they work at a firm, but then they secretly tell me, but I'm going to go back into public interest, and I say, then do all the pro bono work for LAFLA that you can, or any other organization. So I would say that it's this kind of continuum. I think you were also talking about this, Professor Pastore, which is we have students that find different pathways, and as I look at it, all pathways, careers are like jungle gyms, right? It's not necessarily that ladder of
Don't
success.
fall off.
Yeah, exactly. But there'll be a safety net. And so sometimes, like for example, when I look at the composition of what students might do, their 1L summer, they can work for one of the legal service organizations here in Los Angeles, or they can go back to their hometown and work. I think we had someone working for Legal Aid in Nebraska one summer because that's where the 1L was from. We have students that go to Washington, as Mirelle mentioned. So, I would say, like, if I look at my numbers, for example, I might typically have about a third of our class going into some type of legal services or government type of position their first year for their 1L summer. Now that'll change as they go through law school. But I do find that even during law school, you can find those opportunities to do public interest or pro bono work while you're here, maybe through a PILF clinic or through one of our clinical programs. They may be in one of the clinics that Professor Pastore mentioned, or they might do a program through a practicum or one semester type of course. I've had students who have volunteered or obtained an externship, which is a course of study during your 2L or your 3L year, sometimes during your summers, where you're basically getting academic credit for the work that you're doing, which can help, in terms of your course selection. And so I will have students that will either volunteer or pursue externships so that every semester they are doing something related to public interest. Now, as we get to post-graduation, or as we get to graduation in terms of opportunities in public interest, I think it's kind of a window, or kind of it shadows what's in the world in terms of what kind of legal jobs are out there. Unfortunately, 90% of jobs are not public interest, but that's, I think, just the legal market. Most jobs are in the private sector. So when I was looking and preparing for today's panel, I saw that approximately 10% of our class will go into public interest straight after graduation. And I think that's kind of typical of kind of what are the opportunities out there post-graduation. And we do have a significant portion also going into judicial clerkships, which can then lead into future public interest, government, or even private sector opportunities. And what I also will see is I also kind of track, I mean, the great thing about my position is developing relationships with students, with alumni, to see where people are. And like Professor Pastore mentioned, no one stays in their job for 50 years. They often start a job and then they may move on to something else. So we have seen students start at major law firms, but then join the city attorney's office, or go to the district attorney's office, or they start at one legal services organization and then they go over to another. So this is not your career can be as vibrant and can be changing as much as you would like it to change.
One of the other opportunities for students both during the summer and during the school year is to be a research assistant for professors. We have a question for you, Professor Pastore, about what kind of opportunities there are for research within the public interest law.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be hiring a research assistant right now, but I think most of the people watching are not yet eligible. And in fact, my current research assistant, who sadly is going to have to stop in the spring because he's too busy, is one of our public interest scholars as well. So many professors, I would say probably most, hire at least one research assistant at all times. I typically have 2 part-time research assistants in the summer, and I like to hire students part-time because that allows many public interest-minded students to not have to forego the opportunity to work full-time in a public interest organization, but also get some experience working closely with a professor, getting a lot of feedback on their writing, and working on things that may be of particular interest to them. So for me, students can have a full-time job as long as they're interested in doing research, after hours or on weekends. I don't really care when they do it or where they do it. So that has worked out very well for me. I have typically had my research assistants doing everything from helping if I'm working on a piece of litigation, helping do research and drafting for that, to I'm co-author of a textbook on poverty law. We've just finished the exhaustive process of preparing the 2nd edition that was heavily contributed. The contributions of research assistants were very important in all of that. Preparing materials for new courses. My colleagues tease me because I think many professors' ideal is have 3 courses that you're going to teach without change for your entire career. That is just anathema to me, and so I've developed a lot of different courses over the years. The course that I've mentioned on ethical issues for nonprofit government and criminal lawyers. I have a course called Suing the Government. I have a civil rights course, I have a poverty law course. Most of those courses, or at least my iteration of them, didn't exist when I started them, and so there aren't textbooks out there, and so instead I have to really think about what materials do I want students to read as they think about how to put these subjects together and how to think about them from an advocacy-oriented perspective. So there's often a lot of work with students helping me identify cases that might be good for students to read, articles that we should excerpt, studies, all data, work by advocates, by government agencies, all sorts of materials like that. So I think being a research assistant is a wonderful thing for students to do while they're in school, and there are many, many opportunities to do that here. I've also had students either work for me as a research assistant or take my practicum, the hands-on opportunity to work with me and a nonprofit organization on advocacy matters in the real world. I've had students take that who are not particularly thinking about a full-time public interest career. They may just find things I'm working on interesting or just want to get some hands-on experience in the world. And some of those students have been some of the best practicum students and research assistants, and a couple of them, one of them in particular who comes back, I know you probably know who I mean, who comes back to lots of events, a very loyal Trojan, is working in the private sector, has no particular plans to leave the private sector, but has told me frequently over the years that working on that practicum was one of the most important things that she did in law school. It gave her some skills, but it also gave her some insight into people who can't afford to pay big firm or even small firm lawyers for legal services, and our obligation as lawyers to give back to the system and try and make the system more fair. I've had lawyers, I'm sure Fernando you've had this, and Rachel you probably had this as well, and Mirelle you will have this. I've had lawyers throughout my career say that, private sector lawyers say that pro bono work that they've done has been among the most meaningful things they have ever done in their career. So again, just to stress something I said earlier, I just don't think it's the case that there are sort of public interest people and other people. I think everyone has an interest in making our legal system function better, and there's a way for everyone to contribute to that effort. Absolutely.
I think our students and our alumni are multi-layered, right? They have lots of different interests, and and they pursue it, and I think we're in a community where we foster that type of pursuit.
And to echo that, we had a student this year who emailed, he was gonna be a 2L, and he won't be working in public interest, but asked if he could still participate in our Veterans Legal Clinic, and of course the answer is yes, any students can participate in any of PILF's clinics. But he said that he wanted to do this because he found it so fulfilling, and he wanted to be able to continue that work alongside his new position in a private firm.
We have lots of students who participate in PILF's clinics during the year who don't take nonprofit jobs in the summer. Last year we had over 100 students logging hours at PILF's clinics, and we had something like 30 PILF grants. So we have far more students who participate in public interest clinic work during the year than make that their full-time summer job or long-term job. I think that's all to the good.
And firms like that too, right? Because firms also talk about the pro bono work they do in the community. They're very proud of the pro bono work that they do in the community. So I will say, I might have a student who will say to me, especially in 1L, like, I don't know if I should do public interest because I want to go to a big firm. And I'll say, believe me, big law likes you doing this kind of work, and it's true.
And it plants that seed, right? So once you get involved, once you see the impact that you can make with just even a few hours of volunteering, I think it goes a long way, and it can stay with you throughout your career, no matter where you land.
I think it reminds you why you came to law school in the first place.
Absolutely.
Definitely, especially during finals week, which we're in next week. There's a question for me about what my favorite part of the public interest community at USC Gould is. I think it's just the dedication. I want to give a really big shout out to especially the 2Ls on the executive board of PILF this year. It's a lot of hard work running an organization like that that's in charge of so much. And everyone is so dedicated. We're all doing it in our free time alongside with classes, clinic work, outside life responsibilities. And it sometimes can feel like a fuller part-time job. And I think the reason PILF has been thriving this year and for the past 30 years is because the students that are involved in it care so much about the cause and are dedicated to it. We have our pro bono chairs who find new clinics every year. Our communications chair is always sending things out. We have an alumni chair. And for students who are coming to Gould as 1Ls, you can get involved in PILF through the clinics, of course, but you can also be a 1L representative. And during your 2L year, you can apply to be on the executive board. And it's a great chance to get to know all the players of the public interest community here at Gould, outside of the Gould community, in the greater Los Angeles area. So there's lots of chances to be a public interest star here at USC Gould. And I think that's something that's really special is that, we are a vibrant, tight-knit community that really support each other. And the people who I know in PILF and the Public Interest Scholars Program are some of my closest friends here at the law school, and I anticipate will be my close friends post-graduation. I think we should wrap up with one piece of advice from everybody for students who are interested in public interest and plan to apply to law school or going through the application process. Fernando, if you want to start.
Sure. I mean, I've said this before. You spent 3 years in law school. Many of you have probably taken out loans or taking out loans, and you're going to be paying those loans for a while. You own your career. Pick a place in the path that is meaningful to you and where you can be your authentic self. We'd love to have you volunteer at LAFLA if that is your passion, to help people who would otherwise not have access to justice. And we invite you to look at the volunteer opportunities at LAFLA at any one of our 5 offices. Also a reminder that today is Giving Tuesday, so just a plug for LAFLA. If you'd like to donate, please donate on Giving Tuesday. And volunteer time, volunteer your energy, and I think that you will fall in love with the work once you get started.
This is a tough one. I think that what's coming to mind is make connections and live your community. I think that's really important, making connections to your classmates, your future classmates, to organizations, to your faculty, to your career services, to to alumni is really important because we're all in this together, and we see that the collaboration of all is better than just one person.
I think advice for people deciding whether to come to law school, I don't think there's any doubt that lawyers are important right now. I don't think there's any doubt that the rule of law is not something that happens automatically or for which respect just remains no matter what happens. I think we're clearly in a moment in the history of our country where lawyers are very important. So I don't think there's doubt about whether this is a good time to pursue a career in the law. It's necessary that we have public-spirited people pursuing careers in the law. In terms of choosing a law school, I was struck by what Mirelle said. I think you have to find a place that you feel at home. So I think it's really risky to choose a place without going there to visit. And I think the more things that you can do while you're there, the better your choice will be. Attend a class, talk to faculty who teach things that you're interested in, find the students who share the interests that you have. I have students sitting in on classes all the time, and I think that's a really good way to get a feel for what the community is like. Big versus small is one of the most important choices that you can make in a law school. We're small, I like that, not everybody likes it, but if you like it, this is a great place for that. Come and see.
To piggyback on what Professor Pastore said, part of the reason I chose Gould is because I went to a private undergraduate university and I knew the benefits of a small classroom, knowing my professors, and I have that here. Every single professor knows me by my name. I can go to them in office hours feeling comfortable, and when I need things like recommendation letters, I bother Professor Pastore. And they know who I am, so it's not just a generic letter about a good grade I got in a class or something like that. They can really speak to who I am as a student, who I am as a person, and how I can contribute, to that job or scholarship or whatever it is. The other thing I'll say when you're applying to law school, the best advice I got for a personal statement was to write it and think, will the admissions officer want to sit down and have dinner with me and learn more about what I'm talking about? Our Dean of Admissions, Dean Kirshner, does this really incredible speech during orientation where he talks about the students that are coming in the entrant class. And I remember sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, I'm surrounded by all these incredible people. And that's the amazing thing about law school. So really make sure that you show that in your personal statement. It's your one chance outside of the LSAT and the GPA and your resume where you get to show who you are and why the legal career is going to help you become the person you want to be in the future. So take advantage of that. Is there any last comments from the panel? Okay. So we can also talk just really briefly about financial support and scholarships. I'm happy to talk about this unless one of you want to. Okay. So USC Gould provides scholarships to a majority of students that can range from $10,000 to full ride scholarships. And these are merit-based scholarships, and they actually hold throughout all 3 years at USC Gould, which is unique to the school. So even, it doesn't matter what grades you get your first, second, or third year, you'll retain whatever scholarship you start with all 3 years, which is great for stability because law school is really difficult. And as a first-generation professional myself, the learning curve of how to even just take a law school exam can be really tricky. We also have financial aid programs that will help you post-graduation. So our LRAP program will help you for the first 5 years post-graduation. The law school, if you're working in a qualifying public interest job, will help supplement the payments of your loans. So it will depend on what your income is, and the school will help you pay the remainder of your loans. This works for the first 5 years, and then the goal is for the federal program to take over for those last 5 years, and then hopefully after 10 years you have your federal loans forgiven. And then in terms of scholarships, I'll just say USC is always sending out scholarship opportunities. I apply to a lot of scholarships, and most of them come through the emails that I get from Gould. So they send out a weekly scholarship notice, and there's a number of scholarships that are only for USC students. So for example, the Beverly Hills Bar Association, they give 5 scholarships to the 5 law schools in Southern California, and one of them is dedicated to a USC student. So by coming to a school like USC, you automatically have a higher chance at receiving receiving scholarship opportunities like this. Okay, I'll open it up one more time for everybody. Okay, okay. Thank you for joining us today at this Public Interest Live event, and we hope to see you in person visiting USC Gould in the future.